So I guess you find familiar this interface. This is a Neptune system, which we love and also hate at the same time. And I just want to show you that you can find some information about all your classes here in the Neptune system. For example, here is my lecture, High Level Programming Languages 1. So if whenever you click on it, you can find this internet address, this link to the description of the course. And if you click on it and download this document and open it, then you can see the description of the course, and most importantly, you can see the schedule of the lectures here. So roughly we have 14 weeks in this semester. Yeah, and this will be the schedule. So today we are going to I'm going to give some introduction, which is you can imagine that as a starter kit for your exercise class, because you have an exercise class from High Level Programming Languages 1, right? Do you already had a class with your other teacher? So okay, okay, great. So I want to tell you that please take that class very seriously, because this class is a prerequisite for my class. So if you fail on that class, in the exercise class, then you fail at my class as well. Uh, okay, so this is the first message here. If you passed the exercise class, then you can come to me to take the exam at the end of the semester. So we are going to have a lecture each week together. At the end of the semester, you have to pass an exam at me, but only if you pass the exercise class. The exam is an oral exam. Well, the Latin name for that is colloquium. So you will have an oral exam. I just give you a topic from which you have to about which you have to talk, and that's it. It's a typical exam. Anyway, as we proceed during the semester, I will talk more about the exam. This is something we can do later. Okay, so I think that's it. Here in the description, you can see some literature. So uh, if you need some additional literature, just search for those books. I think those books can be found online. The first book is an online book. The second one is, well, you can torrent this book, or you can download some PDF uh, of this book, and then you can read it. But the first one is much appropriate for this course. Okay, so let me start this lecture. We are going to learn the basics of programming together. So if you think you are already advanced, then I can tell you that soon, next week, we are gonna dive into particular topics. So I hope next week I can tell you something new. This week, I mean, in this current lecture, I will give you only an introduction. So you may be bored, uh, but we also have some guys who are not that experienced in programming. So this is something I have to do for you, for all of you. So what's the how to say, what's the goal of this course? and what's the goal of all the course you have in programming. In the future, you must be able to deal with high level programming tasks, especially after you fetch your degree here in computer science. Your closest goal is to pass the exam, as I told you. So you must be prepared for that. Um, I would like to show you some statistics, because after you fetch your degree, of course, you will want to go to a company to find. You want to find a good position somewhere. So, for example, here I found some statistics from the United States. Um, this is just an example. So this says that compared to 2016, in 10 years, the need for software developers and software engineers, you are going to be software engineers, by the way, uh, is going to increase by 30%, which is really great news for all of us. And actually, this picture looks very similar in a global scale. Here you can see some European data from 2020, actually. And well, I think this picture is self-explanatory. So there is a high demand for software engineers. This is really great news for you and for all of us. Yeah, and this is also great news. So these are the salary levels in Europe. I mean the average levels. Of course, for example, in Hungary, the salaries are lower. In some European countries they are higher. But anyway, those numbers, these numbers look quite nice. I hope you agree. What else? I found this data from the previous year. So there are lots of jobs which are open for software engineers, more than 200,000 positions worldwide. Okay, and yeah, and I was also interested if this COVID pandemic, decreased the demand for software engineers, and it seems not that much. So here in the last paragraph, you can see some data. It says that mm, that compared to other kind of jobs, the only 5% of software engineers lost their jobs. In other jobs, this number is 20%. So it seems that being a software engineer is quite, how to say, uh, so it's quite stable. The position of software engineers is quite stable. Not even the uh, pandemic decreased this stability. So these are very recent statistics. So I think you chose very wisely when you decided to learn about computer science. Okay, but before you go to a company and before you fetch your degree, you have to learn how to do programming, and the only way to learn it is practicing programming. So you have to practice a lot uh, in programming. There is no other way. Now I am now I am against myself. So I'm telling you that even if you join my lectures each week, which I hope you will do, uh, so even joining my lecture is not that important than practicing programming all the time. not only in your exercise class with Mr. Gabor, but at your place in the dormitory. Actually, you should practice on the daily basis. Here is a suggestion by me. So I suggest you to practice 1 hour each day, at least 1 hour, especially at the beginning. After a certain time, you will feel how easily you can how to say, how easily you can learn new things in programming, how easily you can write programs for certain exercises. And if you feel that you are not strong enough in it, then you should keep practicing 1 hour, sorry, this is plural, 1 hour or even more each day, and even on weekends. This is bad news for you, but at the beginning you should practice even on the weekends. Please remember this. This was my suggestion, and I mean it. But anyway, if you came since you came to a computer science program, I guess you are quite open to practicing programming on the daily basis. Am I right? Okay, good to hear. Thanks for your feedback. Okay, then let's start with some language. So we definitely need a programming language to start learning programming in it, and we could choose any of the programming languages, for example, JavaScript or Python or C++ or C or Pascal or Ruby. There are plenty of programming languages. You also mentioned several of them, but actually we always talk with I mean always discuss this question with my colleagues, which language we choose as a first language, and we always agree that we have to choose an object-oriented language. I already mentioned that object-oriented programming is the dominant way of programming nowadays. Actually, we are going to learn about object-oriented programming next semester in high-level programming languages too. In this semester, we are getting ready for starting to program in an object-oriented way. So you definitely need to pass this class before you go for programming an object-oriented way in the next semester. And we always discuss about which language to choose exactly. So Java is one of the candidates, very strong candidates, and at several universities, Java is the first language in learning programming, but we chose C# because C# is very similar to Java. Actually, at the beginning, it was a clone of Java. It was cloned by Microsoft 20 years ago. And in the last 20 years, C# developed in a very own way and a very nice way. And we think that C# is a easier language to learn the basics in this language. Here, I also have a typo. The plural is missing. Okay, so I also browsed some statistics in the internet. A few years ago, these statistics are from a few years ago, and here you can see that there are languages which are much more popular than C#, but actually it depends on which statistics you look at. So here you can see another statistics from 2018. Here Python is not that seems to be not that popular. Java is the first, and C# is that uh, not on a low not on such a low level than in the previous statistics. Here is the third statistics. Here C# is quite good and Java is leading, but these are statistics from 2018. So yesterday, when I was no, come on, when I was how was that? Yeah, when I was preparing for this class, I looked at some fresh statistics. You can always find some fresh statistics on sorry. Ah, come on, where are you? Ah, sorry. Can you see that Stack Overflow? So, do you know this this web page, Stack Overflow?
Stack has ready programs or ready like something, you just copy the code and paste
Yes,
it here.
exactly. So whenever you have some question or issue with your program, you can ask questions here. For example, you copy your code and then uh, the community tries to answer your question. Exactly. So a guy, a student, a Hungarian student of mine told me that Stack Overflow is like Bible for him. So this is like a sacred.
Most of the companies they use this one.
Yes, everyone uses Stack Overflow. I I also do. So, and you will use Stack Overflow all the time whenever you have some question regarding programming. And Stack Overflow is a very nice guy because every year they draw some statistics and they ask their users to fill some survey form, and based on their answers, Stack Overflow uh, mm, how to say Stack Overflow generates some statistics, and these statistics are really interesting. These are very fresh statistics from 2020. Just look at it. Okay, so for example, there are several aspects. For example, you can see the number of users by countries. For example, from India, there are several, so a very high number of Stack Overflow users. Of course, US is leading, but Europe is not bad either. Let's see, Morocco, well, not that many. Egypt, Jordan, okay, Egypt. But this is not that important. You can see what kind of developers use Stack Overflow, or for how many of them programming is a hobby. Anyway, there are so many interesting questions here. For example, this one. I found this very fascinating. So most of the Stack Overflow users have a bachelor degree. This really surprised me, and several of them have even master degree, and only a low number of them have no education. This is interesting because I thought that the tendency today is that less and less people go to universities to learn programming. Okay, I want to show you.
The university is just like a kickstart.
Excuse me?
The university is just like a kickstart for you to start programming.
Yeah, exactly. But beside universities, there are also companies which educate people for programming uh, in a very short time. So you spend at least 3 years, and at a university to fetch your bachelor degree. Companies train you in, I don't know, 6 months. But the problem with those companies is that they teach you how to use a certain technology or framework. They don't teach you how to solve problems in any.
It's better to buy on Udemy the courses.
Udemy. Well, no, Udemy courses are really good actually. I mean, there are companies who teach you in person. For example, in Budapest, in our capital, there are several such companies who teach people how to do programming, but the knowledge they give those people is not that deep, not that universal. If you go to university for a bachelor degree, you get a much universal, much deeper knowledge, which is at some point it's a must in this computer science industry. This is what I wanted to highlight here. Okay, let's check out the languages. Okay, technologies. Okay, so here are the languages which most people use, and well, as we already discussed, HTML, CSS are not programming languages. They are just markup languages. JavaScript is a programming language already. It's the most popular one, but actually Java and C# are not that behind. Okay, but still JavaScript is the most popular programming language. Or is it? Because you know, this is only a statistics, which means Stack Overflow measures how many questions were asked regarding a programming language. So it seems that lots of people ask something about JavaScript. Less people ask something about C#. Why? Well, part of the reason is that JavaScript is much more difficult to use and less documented. C# is very well documented, and it's kind of easier to know what to do. In JavaScript, sometimes it's very difficult. Actually, I hate JavaScript. Of course, I have to use it sometimes, but I really hate it because it's under-documented. So the picture here is not that clear which language is popular, more popular than the others. Let's see some other question. Which are the most used web frameworks? And here, this is very interesting. The first one is do you know jQuery? I think one of you mentioned this. So you don't know jQuery, none of you?
I've heard about it, but never.
Yes.
Okay. So this is a JavaScript framework, and this is the most widely used one. But I was really surprised by looking at ASP.NET. You know, ASP.NET is a oh, sorry. ESP.NET is a, let's say, C# framework, and also ESP.NET Core. I'm going to talk about .NET and .NET Core soon. So these both are, let's say, C# frameworks, and if you add those numbers, actually you get almost I mean almost the same number as this percentage here. So ESP.NET, this C# based web framework, is coming upwards in statistics. This really surprised me. So it seems those technologies gain more and more popularity. The next chart is also interesting. This is about frameworks, programming frameworks in general. Here you can see that the first one is again a JavaScript framework, Node.js, but the second and the third one are .NET and .NET Core. These are C# based net frameworks. They are getting more and more popular. I didn't know that. I was really surprised yesterday when I looked at the statistics. So I think it seems again C# is not a bad choice to start programming with. Okay, let's continue with C# then. So C# is a 20 years old language, and I already told you that it is created and managed by Microsoft, the company Microsoft. It is based on Java, but in the past 20 years, it was developed very nicely, and the current version is 8.0. So this is something I can tell you about the language C#. When you want to use a programming language, you always need a programming framework as well in the background. So the programming framework you need is called the .NET framework or the .NET Core framework. The .NET framework, you can use the .NET framework on Windows. All of you use Windows?
I do, yes.
Is there anyone else who, yeah? So none of you use Mac OS or Linux? No. Okay, but if you did, you could use this other .NET framework, .NET Core. This is a platform independent version of .NET. So you can even program in C# for Mac OS or Linux. This is really cool. Okay, what else do you need? You need also a software which is called a development environment. And the official development environment for C# and .NET is called Visual Studio. So here I already I did not open my Visual Studio. I will open it soon. The current version is Visual Studio 2019. I recommend you to use the free version of this one, which is called Visual Studio Community. Just search for it. You can download it, you can install it for free. I think you have to register to Hotmail or something, and then you can use this community version for free of charge. Which one?
When we had the exercise,
I see.
we downloaded one.
Okay, good. So install this Visual Studio on your computer if you have not done that yet, because you have to use it during the semester and next semester and after that semester during your studies. Okay, here I have an older version, Visual Studio 17, but this is not the community version. So I'm going to use this one. This is how it looks like. And in your exercise class, you already started a project, I guess, right? What kind of project did you start with Mr. Gabor? Okay, in a console application, right?
Yeah, it's in a console.
Okay. So this semester we are going to use only console applications, and also next semester, probably in the third semester, you are going to learn about other type of projects, because in Visual Studio you can create several type of projects. For example, this Windows Forms application. Does any of you already use the Windows Forms application in the past? Yes. Okay. So could you explain us how Windows Forms application looks like? Excuse me? I don't understand. You studied, okay, but compared to okay, you haven't used it yet. Actually, you did. You have not developed a Windows Forms application, but we use Windows Forms applications all the time. This is a Windows Forms application here, or this is a Windows Forms application here. Windows Forms application have windows and combo boxes and text boxes or buttons or check boxes. So use Windows Forms applications all the time. In Visual Studio, you can even develop one. So this is what you are going to learn next semester or in the third semester. In the third semester, you are going also to learn about VPF, which is a even more advanced technology to develop forms applications. But in Visual Studio, you can also, you can develop web applications. Jesus. Web applications. I already mentioned those technologies, ASP.NET and ASP.NET Core. Or you can also develop cloud applications and so on and so on. So this is a quite universal um, development environment. Okay, let me just open a console application now, as you did with Mr. Kushper. You already learned that you have to give some name to your project. Let's call it hello user. And you already know that now such a file was created. This is a text file, also called a source file, and you have to type the instructions here, and you have to close all the instructions with this semicolon, right? You learn this. Okay, of course, those are not legal instructions. You have to use the C# language. So here it is. This is what I told you. Inside the main method, this is what we call the main method here, you can just write instructions one after the other. Don't forget to close them with semicolon, and they will be executed in this order from top to down. Okay, the question, what kind of instructions we can use? So could you tell me what kind of instructions you used with Mr. Gabor? Hmm?
Was console command.
Console, what? Right line. Yeah.
Mr. Gabor was trying to make the program with less like less letters or least words. So we're just trying to delete word and find if the program would run with it or without it.
I see. I see. Okay. So you only use this instruction, right? Console right line.
Execute right line and
Okay, I see. Okay, so then you know that if I execute this, which button I have to push on my keyboard to execute?
start F5.
F5. Okay, I press F5 and nothing happened. Okay, now it's happening. Something's happening, but then the console was closed immediately. Do you... Yes, thanks. This is another instruction. So the problem is that the system does not wait with closing the you know, Uh, so this instruction is executed, and then the program already ended. Therefore, the console was closed. So you have to put here another instruction to wait for something. This waits for key press. So if I press it, hello world is written, and my console application is wait for me to press some key on my keyboard. Okay, so you use those two instructions only, right? Okay.
Yes, but I have a question. Why under using system, which is the first line, why the text under it just seems like they are comments while there isn't a comment?
Mm-hmm. Do you know what these are?
Here are the library.
Yes, libraries. So these are libraries from which we use some element. Console, as written here, is part of the system library. The full name of console is system.console. But we don't, yeah,
But are these used like they are like
exactly.
so are they used like are they active now or
Yes,
the first line
exactly. That's it. That's it.
the obvious
Exactly, exactly. So they are not used now. You don't use any elements of those libraries. You can even delete them. If you delete the first one, then you get an error.
you have to add this
Exactly. Either you add the system before, but then you have to add it everywhere, which is quite inconvenient. Therefore, it's easier to import the whole library. Exactly. Actually, these are called not libraries officially, but namespaces. This is one of the namespace, and we are going to learn about namespaces as well. Thanks for this question. Okay, so let's learn about more instructions. Because with Mr. Kushper, you are going to use lots of kind of instructions. First of all, in your programs, you always need to use some data. Here, for example, you and I used this data. This is a fixed data, hard-coded data, this text. Sometimes you have to use not only text, but numbers, either integer numbers or real numbers with float with this decimal point. So these hard-coded data, hard-coded values are called literals. Here I use a literal, but I could use other ones. So for example, I can also print, or I can write to the console a number. For example, I can put the value of p on the console. Do you know further values here after 14 by heart? How does it continue? 15? 7? 7, right, like this or what? So you don't know.
I don't think it's 7, but maybe like yes. I will Google it.
Yeah, okay.
14159.
5, 9. Okay, it's really interesting. I want to share you this, share with you this experience of mine. So sometimes we have Chinese students, and it's amazing. They know the decimal numbers of pi. How many? I think 20 decimal values of pi. They know it by heart because they have to learn in school. Imagine that. This is crazy. But for what? Because this is what I want to tell you. In the framework, in the .NET framework, you can find such so-called constants already built in. For example, you can access the value of pi in this form math.py. So let's try this. So you can also print the value of this constant. Let's see. Okay, so you don't even have to Google it because it's already built in the .NET framework. This is good news for you. Actually, in this math class, this is called a class, you can find lots of built-in constants and functions. I guess at some point you will need it. Okay, what else you can use for storing data? Well, you can use also variables. You know what variables are from mathematics or even for programming. So basically I can introduce a variable x, and I can assign a value to it like I don't know, 42, and that's it. And after that I could print it, or I could do calculations with it. This is no problem, or isn't it? So here there is some problem.
You have to identify x.
Yeah, we have to define x. What does it mean? What didn't I define here?
I don't remember it, but
Yes.
what kind of data?
Exactly. So whenever you introduce a variable, you have to define the type of that variable, which means that you have to type something here. This stands for integer. This is a must. You always have to tell what is the type of a variable, because it matters. It matters if it is an integer or a decimal point number or a text. It really matters. So this is a must. We always have to put the type in front of your variable. Okay. Okay. Bad news for you or good news for you, I don't know. At this point, maybe it's bad news. There are plenty of types, not only int, but there are plenty of types, plenty of kinds of types. Now I used an integral type, but there are 14-point types. There is a Boolean type, a character type, there is a string type, array type, class type, so many types. Next week we are going to go deeper in the world of types. Currently, I think it's quite sufficient to talk about those two types. Integral type is, int is an integral type, for example, but there are several integral types in each programming languages, even in C++ or Java, or Pascal, or no, not PHP. In PHP, I don't think you need to use types in a direct way. Anyway, in C# there are 8 integral types. Int is only one of them. So next week I'm going to talk about all of those types. Now for you it's important to know that int can hold a very large range of numbers. An int can hold a number which is greater than approximately -2 billion up to +2 billion. So you can store 42 in an integer, and you can even store larger numbers. Maybe this is too large because it's larger than 2 billion. Maybe if I erase some characters, but actually using developers to Visual Studio is really nice, because Visual Studio gives you a error message. It says well, it basically says you cannot use an integer, you have to use a larger type, long, you see, long. And here you can see that, yes, we have a long type which can hold very, very large numbers, very, very long numbers. But I'm pretty sure this is already okay because this is 1 million. Okay, so that's about integers. There is another important type, string. Can you tell me, do you know what type the string is? What kind of values it can hold? Anyone? Do you know something about a string?
Yeah, we can store words in it, like integer for numbers and string for letters and words.
Exactly, exactly. So we already used a string data here, but of course, if you need such a variable of string, which you want to use to store text in it, you can define, for example, such a variable username, and you can give it a text, a series of characters, as you just said, told us, like I don't know, Donald Trump or something like that. So this is a string variable. It can hold a text. This is an integer variable which can hold a number. Of course, you can introduce as many variables you want. You can name them whatever you want. Of course, there are some rules. For example, you cannot use a space inside, but you can use an underscore inside. You must not use special characters inside. But actually, Visual Studio immediately throws you an error message if you do something wrong. Age is a proper identifier, a proper variable name. For example, I don't know how old is Donald Trump, but I know how old your teacher, Mr. Gabor or Mr. Gabor Kusper is, but maybe this is a very sensitive information. I think he is 44. Okay, I think you get my point. You can use variables with types and you can assign values to those variables. Yeah, and of course you can change the values of variables whenever you want. For example, 1 year ago, 1 year, so next year, Gabor Kusper will turn to 45 years old. So, and then he will turn to 46 years old. You can change the value of a variable whenever you want, as many times as you want. Whenever you have question, please throw me that question. Okay then, so I think this slide is quite self-explanatory. Actually, what we did is called variable declaration, not definition. Variable declaration, when you declare the type and the name of the variable. Giving a initial value is optional. You can, it's not a must. So I can even skip this initial assignment and then assign values later. How can you do that? You can use this assignment operator, the question, the equality sign, right? So this is what I used here. So this is about assigning a value. This is what we call one of the assignment operators. There are other assignment operators, for example, plus plus. Do you know what plus plus does? Exactly. Exactly. It increases the value by 1. For example, here, instead of setting the age to 46, I could just increase the previous value by 1, right? Okay, so there are several assignment operators, not only those two, but these are the most important ones for you at the beginning. Of course, you can use the plus plus operator only for integers, not over strings. It doesn't make sense to increase an integer string like this by 1. Okay, I also want to tell you that you can use not only variables to store data inside, but also constants. If you know that the value of a variable will not change, for example, here, the administrator's name on Linux is always root and you cannot change it, then you can make a variable, you can turn a variable to a constant by inserting this const keyword in front. For example, let's suppose I want to introduce a constant here, an integer one, which stores the current year, which is 2020. If you know that you won't change this value in the future, just turn it into a constant like this. And well, whenever anyone tries to change this value to something stupid like this one, this will be prohibited. Without the const keyword, you can do that, anyone can do that, but with the const keyword, you basically restrict the usage of this constant, right? So sometimes we need to introduce constants as well. Okay, let's continue. I think I already mentioned this before. Literals are hard-coded values, even numbers or texts between quotation marks. Here is a typo again. Let me just fix it. Quotation mark. I guess this is the proper form. Okay. Okay. Let's suppose how to say. Okay, so this is what I want to do now. I want to ask the user to give his or her name. I don't want to use a fixed username. I want the user to type his or her name. Then I will greet the user by using his or her name. Then I also want to ask the user to type his or her age, and based on this age I will write something on the console. So the message here is that typically you don't know in advance what your data will be. You have to ask the user to provide this data. So for this you need to read something from the keyboard or a file or from some input device. For example, when we develop a Windows Forms application, or we are developing a game in a 3D graphics game, you have to read the position of the mouse or the position of the joystick or some inputs given by the joystick. So it's really important that your program needs to be able to read some input. And then it is also important to display some data on the screen, or save some data in a file, or draw something on the screen, or you get it, or print something, and so on. So the first question, how we can read the username from the console. Now I'm not giving a hard-coded value here. I would like to read the data here from the console. Do you know how to do that?
Instead of using write line, we use read line.
Thanks, great. This is another instruction, let's say. So that's it, exactly. So we just read something from the console, a line, and then let's do something with it. So for example, sorry, I clean my program. Then I write something on the console. Maybe this, hello, how are you? And here I would like to print the username. Okay, let's find this out. How does this work? And meanwhile, you can tell me why this will be wrong. So for example, my username is Kovács, and this is what I get. How are you? Username. This is something I didn't intend to do. Here I would like to see my username.
Because the input is like we have to change the position between the string username and the console write line.
How to do that?
You just have to move it up before the string username.
Yeah, because the program starts from up to down. So first you entered your name, but you want it to be written after your username.
No, I don't think this is the problem here. Are there any other guesses? Okay, then just look at this string. This is a string literal, so it's a fixed text. You see, it's hard coded. So basically, this is a text which will be displayed. These characters. Instead of displaying these characters, we have to insert here something. I have to insert this variable there. Have you learned how to do this with Mr. Mr. Gabor?
Not yet, but I think we have to remove the quotation before the.
No, quotation is just a character. It's just a letter. It's good. The question how to tell this console write line that you want to insert this variable here. No. Yeah, okay. Okay, this also works. Okay. You mean like this? Is this it? Okay. Yeah, this works actually. Okay, this works. But this is very ugly. So let me show you a more elegant way. And this is something I show you here as well. You can just look at the bottom, a box at the bottom. So you can put something which I call here a substitution field in the string. A substitution string uses those brackets, and between the brackets you have to put a number like this one, and here you have to continue with the variable you want to insert at this point. I will soon explain you why you have to put a 0 here. First, let's just check out if it works. Okay, it works. This is more elegant. So you have not used this substitution fields yet, right? Not, okay. But you will soon. Okay, let's continue. So first of all, this user interface is really bad. Oh, I have only 5 minutes left. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, soon I'm going to stop, but let's just continue with this one. So always give the user some messages what he or she needs to do. So for example, here, before reading something from the console, just write some message what you are expecting to be typed. Yeah, something like that. I'm really bored of typing console write line all the time. Do you already know these abbreviations?
Yeah, tab.
Yes. Okay. CV tab. Blackmagic. Please type your name. Okay. So in a similar way, I would like the user to type his or her age here. So basically, what I want to do is reading the age, which must be an integer. And what I would like to do is that I also would like to write here his or her age. For example, you recently passed, and here write, give us put a substitution field, something like that, and I would like to insert the age here in this substitution field. So now probably I hope you can understand what this number means. This number is is an index. So this is the first and this is the second parameter here. The index is a number which gives the order. This is the first one, this is the second one. So basically I should type 1 and 2 here. This identifies the parameter based on their order. But in C# and also in other C-type languages, indexing always starts from 0. Let me show you this slide here. So here you can see a console write line. You have 3 values to insert in the string. The red one is of index 0, the next one is of index 1, and the last one is of index 2. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So one more thing before we say goodbye. Here I have an error. Whenever you move your cursor over the error message, you get the actual error message. So can you tell me what the problem here is?
That read line expects to read information in string.
Yes.
But the variable is int.
Yeah. Exactly. Thank you. So from the read line, you receive a string, a text, and you want to store a text inside an int variable. Of course, this cannot be done. Most of the times, a text cannot be interpreted as an integer. So anyway, as this error message tells you at the bottom, you have to convert string to int. I don't know if you ever done this. but here is a very easy solution. Look at the box in the bottom. So basically, uh, you can use this instruction int.parse in front of console write line and put console write line between between parentheses like that. So basically, what this does is that it takes the string we read from the console and tries to parse or convert it to an integer. Okay, did you get it?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure you will use those type of instructions next week with Mr. Gabor. Now let's see how our program works. So my username is now Mr. Kusper, your exercise class teacher. I'm 44, and okay, here you can see the string with the data inserted inside. Okay, guys, so I'm running out of time. Next time we'll continue with the rest of this introductory slideshow. So we are going to learn about several operators we can use. Some of those you already know. And then the next very important topic will be the if statement, how you can check if a condition is true or false, and depending on the result of this condition, the value of this condition, you can either execute an instruction or you don't. And after that, we are going to learn about loops, the most basic loop in C#, because lots of time you need to repeat something, repeat instructions. So this is a must to use in most of the times. But now I have to finish this lecture. So any further questions from you?
No, that's all.
Okay. Okay, so thanks for joining my class. Have a nice Thursday and weekend. See you next week. Bye, guys.